Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the strange, uncertain world of medieval medicine, where your doctor might inspect a flask of urine like it held the secrets of the universe, prescribe a suspicious mixture of herbs and powdered gemstones, and confidently remove enough blood to make you question every life decision that brought you there. So before you settle in, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy these quiet journeys through history. I'd also love to know where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. It's one of my favorite parts of reading the comments. Now, lower the lights, get comfortable, maybe let a fan hum softly in the background, and let's wander gently into tonight's story. The first thing you notice isn't the doctor dot, it's the smell. A mixture of damp straw, wood smoke, wet wool, stale ale, and something sharply herbal hangs in the cold morning air. Somewhere nearby, someone boils cabbage. Chickens argue with each other outside. A church bell rolls slowly across the village, reminding everyone that time belongs to God long before it belongs to clocks. Your head feels heavy, your throat burns, and unfortunately, you've decided this is the perfect day to visit the local physician. Not because you trust him, mostly because the fever has lasted 4 days, and your neighbor insists that if you wait another day, your soul might accidentally wander out before your body notices. Not exactly comforting. You shuffle toward a small timber building squeezed between a baker's shop and a cooper's workshop. The sign outside doesn't show a red cross or a shining hospital symbol. Instead, someone has painted a hand holding a small flask. That flask matters. In medieval Europe, many physicians became famous for something called uroscopy, which simply meant studying urine. Lots of urine. More urine than any reasonable person would ever hope to encounter if modern doctors spend years looking at X-rays and MRI scans. Your medieval physician spends his morning holding bottles of pee toward the sunlight and nodding thoughtfully. You suddenly feel very important, not because you're sick, because your urine has an appointment. Inside, the room feels surprisingly quiet. Shelves hold dried plants hanging upside down. Clay jars line rough wooden walls. A brass mortar waits beside. A pestle polished smooth after years of grinding roots into pounders. The doctor finally appears. He wears long robes instead of a white coat. His beard looks carefully trimmed. His fingers carry permanent yellow stains from herbs. Around his neck hangs a small pouch containing notes copied from ancient medical texts. He doesn't look frightening. Actually, he looks rather educated. That's because, in many cases, he really is, contrary to popular myths. Medieval physicians weren't foolish people wandering around inventing treatments on the spot. The best of them attended universities in places like Bologna, Paris, Oxford, or Salerno. They studied ancient Greek and Roman authors. They memorized thick Latin books. They debated ideas that stretched back over 1,000 years. Their biggest problem wasn't intelligence. It was information. Imagine trying to solve today's computer. Problems using instruction manuals written before electricity existed. You might work incredibly hard. You just wouldn't have the right answers. Being a medieval doctor wasn't about lacking confidence. It was about confidently working with incomplete maps. The physician asks only a handful of questions before requesting your urine sample. Naturally, someone hands him a clear glass flask shaped almost like a round apple. He lifts it toward the window. He tilts it left, then right. He squints. He nods. You wait. He continues staring. The silence stretches, long enough that you begin wondering whether he's forgotten. You're still standing there. Finally, he announces that your urine appears slightly cloudy with a hint of yellow, suggesting an imbalance somewhere inside your body. You could have guessed that yourself, mostly because you've been sweating through your clothes since Tuesday. Still, everyone around you accepts his diagnosis with respectful nods. For centuries, physicians believed nearly every illness connected to 4 invisible bodily fluids called the HUMORS. Blood. Yellow. Bile. Black bile. And phlegm. Perfect health required these 4 substances to remain balanced. Too much blood supposedly made someone cheerful but reckless. Too much black bile encouraged sadness. Excess phlegm created sluggishness. Yellow bile inspired anger and impatience. Modern medicine no longer accepts this theory, but for nearly 2,000 years, it explained almost everything. Headaches, stomach pain. Insomnia. Fevers. Personality. Moods. Probably your cousin who borrowed money 3 years ago and never returned it. The humors receive the blame for nearly everything except bad cooking, although that probably deserved investigation too. The physician studies your face. Next, he examines your tongue. He feels your pulse, not because he understands circulation the way doctors do today. William Harvey won't describe blood circulation for centuries yet. Instead, the pulse serves as another clue in a giant medical puzzle assembled from observation, tradition, philosophy, astrology, and educated guesswork. Medicine in medieval Europe often resembled detective work where every witness confidently gave the wrong testimony. Somehow, everyone still believed the mystery could be solved. Your physician asks when you were born, not because he's making conversation. He wants your astrological information. The stars mattered. Many doctors believed the heavens. influenced human health just as surely as they influenced tides and seasons. Medical manuscripts often included diagrams showing zodiac signs connected to different body parts. Aries ruled the head, Taurus governed the neck, Pisces watched over the feet. A cautious physician avoided treating certain body parts when particular constellations occupied unfavorable positions. Imagine calling your dentist today only to hear, "I'd love to help, but unfortunately, Mercury seems moody this afternoon." Different century, different scheduling software. The doctor finally reaches for his shelves. Glass, bottles, wax, sealed, jars, bundles of lavender, rosemary, sage, mint, fennel, honey, garlic, some remedies. Actually help. Honey fights bacteria surprisingly well. Willow bark contains compounds related to modern aspirin. Certain herbs ease digestion, others calm coughs. Centuries of observation occasionally stumbled onto genuinely useful medicine. Nature quietly helped, despite humanity misunderstanding why. Being a medieval doctor wasn't about knowing every answer. Sometimes it meant accidentally discovering one. Unfortunately, the shelf also contains ingredients that inspire much less confidence. Ground pearls, powdered emeralds, crushed coral, tiny amounts of precious metals. Animal organs, mysterious powders imported across continents for enormous prices simply because they sounded exotic. The stranger the ingredient, the wealthier the patient often felt. Even today, expensive products sometimes seem more convincing than ordinary ones. Apparently, human psychology hasn't evolved nearly as quickly as medicine. The physician begins mixing your remedy. He grinds herbs with slow, circular movements. The pestle scrapes softly against stone. Leaves crumble. Roots crack. A sweet, earthy scent fills the room. You almost forget you're sick. Almost. He pours warm wine into the mixture. Wine appears in countless medieval medicines. Not merely because people enjoyed drinking it. Wine preserved ingredients. It masked unpleasant flavors. And although nobody understood germs yet, alcohol sometimes reduced contamination. Quite by accident, a few recipes became safer than plain water. That's one of history's favorite tricks. People occasionally make the right decision for completely different reasons. Outside, rain begins tapping gently across the roof. Someone guides a horse through muddy streets. Farther away, blacksmith hammers ring steadily against glowing iron. Life continues around your illness. In medieval villages, sickness rarely stopped daily routines for very long. Crops still demanded attention. Animals still needed feeding. Firewood still required chopping. If you recovered, wonderful. If you didn't, Someone else finished the chores. Tomorrow. Communities survived because they had little. Alternative. The physician hands you a small cup. The liquid tastes bitter, enough to make your eyebrows negotiate with each other. Hints of rosemary, something floral. Then an aftertaste resembling wet tree bark that recently lost an argument. You force yourself to swallow. He smiles proudly. That worries you more than the medicine. Then his expression changes. He hasn't finished. He quietly explains that one additional procedure should restore balance much faster. You notice him reaching toward a polished leather roll resting on the table. Inside waits a collection of carefully maintained instruments. Not swords, not torture devices. Medical tools. At least that's what they're called. And one particular instrument has helped physicians for centuries. Or so they sincerely believe. It's time to discuss bloodletting. Bloodletting begins with remarkable confidence. Not yours. The doctor's. He unwraps a neatly folded cloth and selects a small blade no longer than your finger. It shines faintly in the candlelight. Someone nearby places a wooden bowl beneath your arm while another assistant ties a strip of cloth above your elbow. You've officially become the day's plumbing project. The doctor explains that your body contains too much blood, or perhaps the wrong kind of blood. Either way, removing some should restore balance. The explanation sounds wonderfully logical, right until someone starts removing the part responsible for keeping you conscious. Bloodletting stood among the most common medical treatments throughout medieval Europe. Physicians recommended it for fevers, headaches, chest pain, skin diseases, infections, digestive troubles, and sometimes simply because the calendar suggested it was a favorable day. There were charts for it, beautifully illustrated charts. Entire manuscripts showed exactly which vein suited which illness, almost like an instruction manual for assembling furniture, except the furniture occasionally fainted halfway through. The physician works carefully. He doesn't slash wildly. He makes one deliberate cut. A thin stream of blood fills the waiting bowl. Everyone watches with quiet approval. You mostly watch the ceiling because it suddenly seems much more interesting. Ironically, bloodletting occasionally helped patients suffering from conditions involving dangerously high blood pressure or excess iron in the blood. Doctors simply had no way of knowing which rare situations benefited from the treatment and which absolutely did not. Finding a useful treatment by accident happened more often than anyone likes to admit. History sometimes rewards lucky guesses. It rarely explains why they worked. The physician eventually presses clean linen against your arm. Clean, at least, by medieval standards. Freshly washed cloth represented good practice. although nobody understood invisible bacteria yet. The idea that tiny living organisms caused disease wouldn't emerge until centuries later. Illness remained mysterious. Bad air, divine punishment, unbalanced humors, corrupted seasons, hostile stars. People searched everywhere except the microscopic world hiding directly beneath their noses, not for lack of curiosity, simply because microscopes hadn't arrived to settle the argument. As your dizziness slowly fades, another patient enters the room. This man complains of severe tooth pain. Everyone immediately sympathizes. Even in the Middle Ages, toothaches possessed an extraordinary talent for ruining otherwise respectable days. The physician examines the swollen jaw. He nods thoughtfully. Then he reaches for a pair of iron forceps. No numbing injections. No gentle reassurance. No tiny television mounted on the ceiling showing relaxing nature. Documentaries. Just determination and perhaps a sturdy chair. Dental care occupied and awkward. Place between physicians, surgeons, and barber surgeons. Many painful extractions fell to barber surgeons who combined grooming with surprisingly adventurous medical careers. Imagine visiting your barber for a haircut, then asking if he could also remove a troublesome molar. And maybe trim your beard afterward. Convenience reached impressive heights. The barber surgeon often displayed a striped pole outside his shop. Today, we think of it as a cheerful decoration. Originally, those red and white stripes likely represented blood-soaked bandages wrapped around a staff. Suddenly the pole feels much less decorative. The tooth comes out. Eventually, the patient survives. Success receives enthusiastic applause because expectations remained pleasantly realistic. Medicine measured victories differently back then. Sometimes success meant curing disease. Sometimes it meant surviving the treatment. Sometimes it simply meant feeling slightly better than yesterday. Progress wore humble clothing. The physician washes his instruments in warm water before returning them to their leather roll. Again, he acts responsibly according to everything he knows. Modern readers often imagine medieval doctors as careless or cruel. Many weren't. They sincerely wanted to help. They spent years studying difficult texts. They traveled long distances for education. They argued passionately about treatments because they genuinely hoped to reduce suffering. Their tragedy wasn't laziness. It was standing at the beginning of a scientific journey rather than somewhere near the middle. Imagine handing a medieval physician a modern thermometer. He'd appreciate the craftsmanship, but without understanding germs, viruses, immune systems, antibiotics, or DNA, the number itself would solve almost nothing. Knowledge builds like a cathedral. One stone supports the next. Remove enough foundation, and even brilliant minds struggle to build higher. Outside the physician's office, another familiar figure waits patiently beneath the drizzle. She isn't a university-trained doctor. She never studied Latin. She owns no expensive manuscripts, copied by monks, yet half the village quietly trusts her. The local wise woman, or healer, or herbalist. The title changes from village to village. Her knowledge usually passes through generations of observation rather than universities. She knows where willow trees grow beside streams. She gathers chamomile before sunrise. She dries peppermint carefully beneath shaded roofs. She understands which berries feed families and which send them searching for priests. Many physicians dismissed such women. Many patients ignored that advice. Results mattered more than credentials when your stomach refused cooperation for 3 days. Relationship between educated physicians and local healers grew complicated. Sometimes they competed. Sometimes they borrowed remedies from each other without admitting it. Occasionally they worked side by side during epidemics because desperate times rarely respected professional pride. Medicine has always collected ideas from unexpected places. Even today, researchers continue discovering valuable compounds inside plants that traditional healers recognized centuries earlier. Not every old remedy proved foolish. Not every new idea proved wise. The trick lies in testing both. As afternoon fades into evening, clouds finally separate. Golden sunlight slips through the small window and lands across shelves filled with dried herbs. Dust drifts lazily through the warm beam of light. The room suddenly feels peaceful enough that you almost forget the fever waiting inside your body. The physician hands you careful instructions. Drink the herbal mixture twice each day. Rest whenever possible. Avoid certain foods thought to increase harmful humors. Pray. Return if the fever worsens. Reasonable advice, mostly, especially the resting part. During the next several days, one of 3 things will probably happen. Your immune system defeats the infection on its own, and everyone praises the doctor's remarkable skill. Your illness naturally runs its course. And once again, everyone praises the doctor's remarkable skill, or your condition grows worse despite every effort, and neighbors quietly conclude that God's plans remain beyond human understanding. Medicine carried enormous uncertainty. People simply learn to live beside it. You eventually recover. Not because every treatment succeeded. Not because medieval doctors possessed miraculous powers, but because the human body often fights astonishing battles without announcing its victories. Your physician proudly records another successful patient. You happily avoid becoming tomorrow's cautionary tale. Everyone leaves satisfied. History, however, remembers something even more important. The physicians of medieval Europe asked questions. Sometimes they asked the wrong ones. Sometimes they reached spectacularly incorrect answers. But they observed, they argued, they copied knowledge. They preserved ancient texts through generations of political chaos, famine, and war. Without those, and perfect scholars, many classical medical writings might have disappeared forever. Their mistakes taught later generations where not to look. Their curiosity pointed future scientists toward better questions. Being a medieval doctor wasn't about making every patient healthier. It was about carrying a small lantern through an enormous darkness, seeing only a few steps ahead, and still choosing to keep walking. The next footsteps echo through a stone corridor far grander than any physician's office. They belong to a king whose greatest enemy isn't a foreign army. It's his own crown. Richard II inherited England before he had even learned how to command a room. He was only 10 years old when the crown settled onto his head in the year 1377. The gold looked magnificent beneath cathedral candles. The responsibilities weighed considerably more than the metal. Adults surrounded him, powerful uncles, experienced nobles, ambitious advisors. Every one of them claimed to know what England needed. Most secretly believed they should decide instead of the child wearing the crown. The kingdom itself seemed tired. The Black Death had carried away millions only a generation earlier. Labor shortages reshaped villages. Taxes climbed higher. Wars with France consumed treasure faster than new coins. Reached the royal treasury. England wasn't collapsing, but the cracks had become impossible to ignore. Richard grew up inside those cracks. He also grew up believing that kings answered only to God. That belief shaped every decision that followed. Imagine spending your childhood hearing that the creator of the universe personally selected you to rule everyone around you. Humility probably isn't the first personality trait that develops. The young king possessed intelligence. He appreciated literature. He admired beautiful clothing, elaborate ceremonies, and graceful architecture. His court glittered with expensive fabrics and polished jewels, while many ordinary families counted loaves of bread one meal at a time. Appearance mattered deeply to Richard. Power, after all, often begins with performance. He understood spectacle long before he understood compromise. Then came 1380-1. England exploded. The peasants' revolt began after years of growing frustration over taxes, harsh labor laws, and local corruption. thousands of ordinary people marched toward London demanding justice. Some carried farming tools, others carried weapons captured. Along the way, their anger frightened nearly everyone, especially the nobles. The king remained only 14 years old, yet history suddenly demanded that he act like a seasoned ruler. Richard rode out to meet the rebels, not surrounded by an enormous army, not hidden safely. Behind castle walls, he met them face to face. It was an astonishing moment of courage, or youthful confidence, possibly both. The rebel leader, Wat Tyler, spoke boldly before the king. Accounts differ about exactly what happened next. During the tense meeting, royal officials killed Tyler. Chaos threatened to erupt instantly. Thousands of armed rebels watched their leader fall. Richard acted with remarkable speed. He rode directly toward the angry crowd and declared that he alone would become their leader. For a few extraordinary minutes, it worked. The rebels hesitated. Confusion replaced immediate violence. Royal forces regained control. Many historians still admire Richard's courage that day. Unfortunately, courage during one afternoon cannot repair years of political mistakes. Once royal authority returned, the government abandoned many promises offered to the rebels. Punishments followed. Executions reminded everyone that challenging the crown carried severe consequences. The revolt ended. The resentment did not. Being a successful king wasn't about surviving one dangerous meeting. It was about convincing people they wouldn't need another as Richard entered adulthood. Confidence slowly hardened into certainty. He rewarded loyal favorites with wealth and influence. Some deserved the honors. Others seemed suspiciously talented at agreeing with everything the king already believed. Every government risks surrounding itself with pleasant echoes instead of uncomfortable truths. Human nature hasn't updated its software very much. Many nobles began whispering that Richard ignored wise advice too often. He preferred elegance over practicality, ceremony over negotiation, personal loyalty over political balance. Whispers eventually become factions. Factions eventually become crises. One of Richard's greatest rivals emerged from within his own extended family. Henry, Bolingbrooke, the son of John of Gaunt, one of the kingdom's most influential nobles. Henry possessed military experience, practical instincts, and broad noble support. Richard increasingly viewed him with suspicion. Suspicion rarely travels alone. It usually brings fear and revenge as companions. When John of Gaunt died in 1399, Henry expected to inherit vast family lands. Richard made another decision. He confiscated them instead. Legally, he stretched royal authority farther than many nobles considered acceptable. Politically, he handed his rival the perfect excuse to return. Henry landed in England while Richard campaigned in Ireland. Officially, Henry claimed he merely wanted his inheritance. Restored support poured toward him with astonishing speed. Nobles changed sides. Soldiers reconsidered old loyalties. Local leaders opened gates instead of closing them. Kings rarely lose kingdoms overnight. They lose them one disappointed ally at a time. Richard hurried home. The momentum had already shifted. His supporters disappeared faster than autumn leaves before a strong wind. Eventually, Henry captured him, the king who believed God alone judged monarchs suddenly depended upon the mercy of another man wearing armor instead of a crown. Parliament declared Richard unfit to rule. Henry became King Henry IV. Richard disappeared into captivity. Most historians believe he died in prison early the following year, though rumors of escape lingered for decades because medieval Europe loved a mysterious missing king almost as much as it loved questionable medical advice. Richard left no children. His reign left something else. Instead, a dangerous example. For generations, English kings had promoted the sacred authority of monarchy. Now, England had watched one king remove another through political force backed by military support. Future rulers remembered that lesson. Future rebels remembered it. The crown still glittered beneath cathedral light, but everyone knew it could fall. Richard never intended to weaken the monarchy. Nearly every decision he made aimed to strengthen it. That irony shadows history again and again. Sometimes rulers destroy institutions not because they hate them. Because they mistake themselves for the institution. Several centuries earlier, another king made an even more astonishing mistake. He believed he could outsmart both his nobles and destiny itself. King John never expected history to remember him quite so badly. That probably would have come as disappointing news. Nobody spends years climbing toward a throne, hoping future generations describe them as the king who somehow managed to upset almost everyone. Yet here we are. John became King of England in the year 1199 after the death of his older brother, Richard the Lionheart. Richard earned legendary fame, leading armies across the Holy Land, leaving songs, stories, and heroic paintings behind him. John inherited something less Glamorous. The bills. Wars cost fortunes. Castles demanded repairs. Mercenary soldiers expected payment rather than inspiring speeches. Royal government consumed money with remarkable enthusiasm. John needed revenue. Constantly, unfortunately, collecting money and remaining popular have rarely enjoyed a successful relationship. John possessed undeniable intelligence. He understood administration. He paid close attention to legal records. He traveled frequently throughout his kingdom instead of remaining comfortably inside one palace. In many ways, he worked harder than Richard. People simply liked Richard more. Charisma sometimes accomplishes what competence cannot. John lacked that gift. He also possessed another unfortunate habit. He remembered every insult. Forgiveness never arrived quickly. Imagine a manager who keeps every awkward email you've ever sent for 20 years. That was roughly John's approach to political relationships. Trust became difficult. France soon presented an even greater challenge. The powerful French king, Philip Augustus, steadily expanded his influence while John struggled to defend England's continental territories. Normandy, Anjou, and several other valuable lands faced increasing pressure. John launched campaigns. He negotiated alliances. He spent enormous sums hiring soldiers. Still, territory after territory slipped away. The loss of Normandy struck particularly hard. English nobles owned estates on both sides of the English Channel. Suddenly, many families watched generations of property vanish into French control. Military defeat hurt, but financial consequences hurt even more. Recovering lost lands required another army. Another army required another. Tax. The cycle continued. Being a medieval king wasn't only about winning battles. It was about convincing exhausted taxpayers that one more payment would finally solve everything. That promise rarely ages well. John demanded increasingly heavy financial contributions from his nobles. Traditional feudal payments expanded. Fines multiplied. Legal disputes conveniently produced additional royal income. The treasury filled. Patience emptied. Many barons believed the king exploited every opportunity to collect another payment. Some complained quietly. Others sharpened political knives instead of actual ones. Sometimes both. John also quarreled with Pope Innocent III over the appointment of the Archbishop of Canterbury. Neither side wanted to surrender. The Pope placed England under an interdict. Church bells fell silent across much of the kingdom. Public religious ceremonies stopped. Many ordinary people feared for their souls. Imagine an entire nation suddenly wondering whether heaven had temporarily suspended customer service. The pressure mounted quickly. Eventually, John surrendered. He accepted the Pope's candidate and even recognized England as a papal fief, agreeing to pay annual tribute. The conflict ended. His reputation suffered another bruise to critics. John increasingly appeared stubborn first and practical second. Every concession arrived only after expensive resistance. His greatest political crisis erupted in 1215. A coalition of angry barons finally reached their limit. Armed opposition forced negotiations beside the River Thames at a meadow called Runnymede. The location looked peaceful. The conversations were not. There, John placed his seal upon a document history remembers as Magna Carta, the Great Charter. Modern readers often imagine Magna Carta instantly creating democracy. Reality moved much more slowly. The document primarily protected the rights of powerful nobles rather than ordinary villagers. Still, one revolutionary idea echoed through its clauses. Even the king had limits. Royal authority could not simply expand forever because one man wished it so. That principle survived long after many individual clauses faded into history. John never intended Magna Carta to become permanent. Almost immediately, he asked the Pope to cancel it. The Pope agreed. Civil war followed. Apparently everyone interpreted peace agreements rather differently. The kingdom fractured once more. French Prince Louis even invaded England after rebels invited him to claim the throne. Imagine arguing with your manager so fiercely that you invite a competitor to run the company instead. Corporate disagreements rarely escalate that dramatically. Medieval politics occasionally did. John spent his final months rushing from castle to castle, trying to rebuild support. He marched through rain-soaked roads. He inspected fortifications. He planned new campaigns. Then illness struck in the autumn of 1216. Dysentery or another severe intestinal disease weakened him badly. Legends later claimed he lost the royal treasure while crossing the tidal marshes. Known as the Wash. The exact details remain uncertain. The image survived anyway. A king losing both his health and his treasure while his kingdom unraveled seemed almost too symbolic for storytellers to resist. John died before reaching 50 years of age. His 9-year-old son became Henry III. Remarkably, the new government made a wise decision almost immediately. Instead of continuing every one of John's policies, Henry's advisors reissued a revised Magna Carta and sought compromise with many former enemies. Peace gradually returned. Sometimes repairing a kingdom begins by admitting yesterday's methods failed. History treated John harshly. Some judgments certainly exaggerate his flaws. Recent historians point out that he administered government efficiently, paid attention to detail, and possessed genuine intelligence. Yet intelligence alone cannot rescue a ruler who steadily loses trust. A kingdom runs on more than castles. Taxes and armies it also depends upon confidence. Once enough people stop believing the crown acts fairly, every new decision feels suspicious before anyone hears the explanation. Richard II believed royal authority should never bend. John believed relentless control would eventually restore order. Both men hoped to strengthen their kingdoms. Instead, each weakened the very institution they wanted to preserve. The lesson reaches far beyond medieval castles. Power rarely collapses because of one disastrous afternoon. It erodes through hundreds of choices that slowly convince friends to become critics, critics to become opponents, and opponents to imagine life without the ruler at all. By the time a king notices the silence growing around his throne, the kingdom has often made its decision already. The first merchant arrives before sunrise. He doesn't wear a crown. He doesn't command an army. He carries a small leather pouch that jingles softly with silver coins, several folded letters sealed in wax, and a notebook filled with neat columns of numbers. Those numbers matter far more than the sword hanging at his belt. The air smells of damp timber and fresh bread drifting from nearby ovens. Harbor gulls scream overhead while workers roll barrels across uneven cobblestones. Horses snort impatiently beside wagons stacked with wool, wine, and timber, destined for places you've only heard mentioned in church sermons. You step carefully through the crowded marketplace. Everywhere you look, someone is buying, someone is selling, someone is arguing over the price of fish with the seriousness usually reserved for international diplomacy. The city feels wonderfully alive. It also feels surprisingly organized. That isn't an accident. Hidden beneath the noise sits an invisible machine, quietly directing much of medieval Europe's economy. The guild. Not one guild. Hundreds of them. Together, they influence prices, control, training, regulate quality, settle disputes, protect trade routes, and quietly decide who earns a living and who doesn't. Most kings notice them. The smartest kings respect them, because while armies conquer cities, guilds keep those cities alive. Imagine opening a restaurant today. You rent a building, buy equipment, hire employees. Print menus. Now imagine someone politely informing you that none of it matters because your business may not legally open unless every existing restaurant owner votes yes. Welcome to guild membership. Without it, many medieval craftsmen simply couldn't work. The guild hall rises ahead of you. Its heavy oak doors stand open. Inside, long wooden tables stretch beneath dark ceiling beams, blackened by generations of smoke. Candles flicker against polished cups. Tapestries soften the cold stone walls. Somewhere in another room, someone scratches steadily across parchment, while recording transactions that may determine the fortunes of entire families. This isn't merely a meeting place. It's the headquarters of an economic network. Guilds, developed throughout medieval Europe between roughly the 11th and 15th centuries as towns expanded and long-distance trade grew. Increasingly important. Different cities organized them differently, but most shared remarkably similar goals. Protect members, maintain standards. Control competition, preserve reputation. And whenever possible, earn respectable profits. That last goal rarely surprises anyone. The merchant greeting you belongs to the Cloth Merchants Guild. His family has traded fine wool for 3 generations. His father taught him how to judge fabric simply by running 2 fingers across its surface. His grandfather claimed he could identify the village where sheep grazed just by smelling freshly woven cloth. That may sound slightly exaggerated. Grandfathers occasionally enjoy enhancing reality. Still, experience mattered enormously. A dishonest merchant could damage the reputation of an entire city. Guilds understood that long before modern branding. Experts invented expensive presentations explaining customer trust. Reputation traveled faster than wagons. A merchant caught cheating weights, mixing poor quality goods with superior products, or breaking agreed prices, risked severe punishment. Heavy fines. Loss of membership. Sometimes permanent expulsion. That last penalty frightened people most. Without guild protection, finding customers became painfully difficult. Being outside the guild wasn't just lonely. It was financially dangerous. A young apprentice sweeps the wooden floor nearby. He looks no older than 13. His hands already carry tiny cuts earned from handling rough wool every day. His education doesn't happen inside a university. It happens here. Guilds trained future craftsmen through carefully structured apprenticeships. A family might place a child with an experienced master for 7 years or even longer. During that time, the apprentice learned every part of the profession. How to judge raw materials, how to negotiate prices. How to recognize dishonest suppliers, how to keep accounts, and perhaps most importantly, how not to embarrass the guild. Mistakes reflected on everyone. The apprentice receives food. Simple clothing. A bed. Occasionally stern lectures delivered with remarkable enthusiasm. Luxury rarely appears in apprenticeship contracts. Patience certainly does. After years of training, the apprentice became a journeyman. The word comes from the French word for day, because many worked for daily wages while traveling between cities to improve their skills. Picture an ambitious young chef spending several years working in different restaurants before opening one independently. The principle hasn't changed much. Travel broadens knowledge. It also broadens opinions about whose soup recipe deserves retirement. Eventually, after proving exceptional ability, a journeyman could submit a masterpiece. The name sounds dramatic. Sometimes the object looked surprisingly ordinary. A perfectly woven cloth. An expertly forged sword. A beautifully carved chest. The masterpiece demonstrated skill rather than artistic imagination. Guild leaders inspected every detail. Measurements. Strength. Finish. Precision. Passing. Earned admission as a master craftsman. Failing meant trying again. No pressure. Several years of work reduced to one examination. At least nobody invented multiple choice tests yet. The guild meeting begins. Masters gather around the long table, while candles cast warm circles across polished wood. They discuss prices first, not individual bargains. General standards. Selling goods, too. Cheaply might attract customers today. Tomorrow it could bankrupt fellow members. Guilds preferred stability over reckless competition. Modern economists still debate whether guilds helped or hindered innovation. The answer probably includes both. They protected quality remarkably well. Sometimes they also protected comfortable habits that resisted useful change. Human organizations often excel at solving yesterday's problems while accidentally creating tomorrow's. The conversation shifts toward trade routes. Caravans recently reported increased bandit activity along a forest road leading toward another market town. Merchants dislike uncertainty almost as much as they dislike spoiled cargo. Perhaps even more. Guild representatives arrange for additional guards to accompany the next shipment. Notice something interesting. The king didn't organize this protection. The town council didn't either. The merchants handled it themselves. Collective action frequently solved problems faster than waiting for distant rulers. Being part of a guild wasn't only about making money. It meant joining a community prepared to defend shared interests. Outside, the marketplace grows louder as more travelers arrive. Flemish wool. Baltic amber. French wine. Italian spices. German metalwork. English cloth. Products from every direction slowly converge. Beneath church towers and castle walls, long distance. Commerce transformed medieval Europe far more than many people realize. Goods carried ideas. Ideas carried technology. Technology carried change. Every wagon crossing a city gate delivered. More than merchandise. It delivered possibility. Yet, one group quietly stood at the center of many of those possibilities. They operated so successfully that merchants across northern Europe eventually connected dozens of cities into something that resembled an international business. Alliance centuries before multinational corporations existed. Their story begins beside the cold waters of the Baltic Sea, and it will reshape medieval trade in ways even kings struggled to control. The harbor of Lübeck never truly slept. Even long after sunset, lanterns swayed gently from ship masts, while waves slapped against thick wooden hulls with steady, comforting rhythm. Sailors shouted instructions in Low German. Ropes creaked under heavy loads. Somewhere nearby, a cooper hammered iron hoops onto another barrel, destined for a voyage across the Baltic Sea. The smell lingered everywhere. Salt, water. Fresh cut pine. Tar, warming beneath torchlight. Smoke drifting from dozens of chimneys. And, if the wind turned just right, a hint of smoked herring that refused to leave anyone's clothing. This busy northern port belonged to something far larger than one prosperous city. It belonged to the Hanseatic League, not a kingdom, not an empire. Not exactly a country. Yet for nearly 4 centuries, this loose alliance of merchant cities quietly dominated trade across northern Europe, with influence powerful enough to challenge kings, negotiate treaties, and occasionally wage war. Without a royal family, without a permanent capital, without anyone wearing an especially impressive crown. Sometimes history's greatest powers arrive carrying ledgers instead of swords. The Hanseatic League began modestly during the 12th century, as German merchants searched for safer ways to conduct long-distance trade. Traveling alone meant risking pirates, bandits, dishonest toll collectors, unpredictable local rulers, and storms that showed absolutely no respect for expensive cargo. Strength, they realized, traveled better in numbers. Merchants from cities like Lübeck, Hamburg, Bremen, Rostock, and later dozens of others gradually formed partnerships that protected shared commercial interests. At first, nobody planned to create one of Europe's most influential trading organizations. They simply wanted fewer unpleasant surprises between ports. A perfectly reasonable goal. The alliance expanded steadily. By the 14th century. Nearly 200 towns maintained some connection to the Hanseatic trading network. Some joined fully, others participated only occasionally. The exact membership changed over time because medieval politics enjoyed making every map wonderfully complicated. Still, one principle remained constant. Trade flourished best when merchants trusted one another. That trust required rules. Lots of rules. Imagine running an online marketplace where every seller comes from a different country, speaks another language, uses different coins, follows different laws, and occasionally argues that your cargo technically belongs to them because a local duke sneezed during yesterday's negotiations. Organization suddenly becomes very attractive. The League developed standardized commercial practices that reduced confusion across enormous distances. Merchants exchanged letters carrying official seals. Cities honored established contracts. Weights and measurements became more reliable. Disputes often passed through League officials before becoming violent. Most people preferred paperwork over warfare. Paperwork rarely sank ships. Merchant prepares his vessel before dawn. Workers carefully stacked barrels filled with salted fish. Nearby they load sacks of rye grain harvested across the Baltic countryside. Rolls of fine Flemish cloth occupy another section beside bundles of beeswax, timber, furs, copper, amber, and iron. Nothing enters carelessly. Every item receives attention. Poor packing could ruin fortunes before reaching the next harbor. Water ignored. Optimism. The captain studies the sky. Gray clouds drift low across the sea. He nods quietly. The voyage begins. Weeks later, those same goods may appear hundreds of miles away inside markets where customers never consider the extraordinary journey behind an ordinary purchase. Trade often succeeds because countless invisible people quietly perform difficult work. History remembers kings. Commerce remembers dock workers. The Hanseatic League established trading offices known as counters in major foreign cities. London. Bruges. Bergen. Novgorod. These commercial centers operated almost like miniature, self-governing neighborhoods. League merchants lived together, stored cargo together, resolved disputes together. Sometimes even worshipped together. Local rulers usually welcomed the business because prosperous merchants generated taxes, employment, and access to valuable imported goods. Until disagreements appeared, then negotiations became considerably louder. One remarkable feature separated the League from many other medieval institutions. Decisions emerged through discussion rather than royal command. Representatives from member cities gathered at meetings called Hanseatic. There they debated policies affecting commerce across northern Europe. Arguments filled meeting halls. Compromises followed. Eventually, anyone expecting quick, unanimous agreement had chosen the wrong century. Consensus travels at the speed of patience. Yet, despite endless debates, the League accomplished something extraordinary. Independent cities voluntarily cooperated for mutual economic benefit over hundreds of years. That idea feels surprisingly modern. Success attracted enemies. Pirates targeted wealthy merchant convoys whenever opportunities appeared. One notorious group became known as the Victual Brothers, originally hired during political conflicts. Many eventually embraced piracy full-time. Apparently, regular employment seemed less exciting. League ships responded by sailing together in armed convoys whenever danger increased. Merchants understood an uncomfortable truth. Peace occasionally required preparing for unpleasant conversations. With crossbows, the League even fought wars. When Denmark threatened Hanseatic interests during the 14th century, member cities united their fleets against King Valdemar IV. Merchant ships transformed into naval forces. Economic disputes became military campaigns. The League eventually secured favorable trading privileges through negotiation backed by remarkable commercial strength. Kings discovered an awkward reality. Interrupting trade becomes expensive for everyone involved. Money often negotiates more persuasively than armies. For generations, Hanseatic prosperity seemed unstoppable. Then Europe changed. Ocean-going. Exploration shifted major trade toward the Atlantic. Powerful centralized kingdoms grew stronger. Dutch and English merchants developed new commercial systems. The old network gradually struggled to adapt. Organizations built for one era rarely fit another perfectly. By the 17th century, the League's influence had faded dramatically. Several cities technically remained members for centuries afterward, but the mighty commercial alliance that once linked Northern Europe had largely become history. Yet its legacy survived everywhere. Modern chambers of commerce. International trade agreements. Commercial arbitration. Professional business associations. Even today's global supply chains quietly echo ideas merchants practiced beneath medieval harbor lanterns. The Hanseatic League never truly ruled. Europe. It never needed to. Influence often. Travels more comfortably inside a merchant's ledger than beneath a king's crown. And while those merchants quietly shaped economies across the north, another kind of power quietly spread across castles, convents, and royal courts. It belonged to women whose authority rarely appeared in official records, but whose decisions changed the medieval world all the same. Queen Eleanor of Aquitaine entered a great hall where every nobleman believed he understood power. Most of them looked toward the king. Very few noticed the woman quietly reshaping the conversation before it had even begun. The candles reflected warmly from polished oak tables. Colorful tapestries softened the stone walls against the winter cold. Servants moved carefully between guests, carrying roasted venison, fresh bread, spiced wine, and bowls of steaming onions scented with thyme. Music drifted from a small group of musicians near the fireplace. Everyone smiled. Almost everyone calculated. A medieval royal banquet. Rarely served only dinner. It served politics. Every seat carried meaning. Every conversation carried opportunity. Every marriage proposal might change the future of an entire kingdom. Eleanor understood that better than almost anyone alive, she inherited the vast duchy of Aquitaine around the year 1137, making her one of the wealthiest women in Europe. Before reaching adulthood, her land stretched across much of southwestern France. Their vineyards, castles, farms, and prosperous towns generated enormous wealth. Kings wanted Aquitaine almost as much as they wanted crowns. Fortunately for them, Aquitaine came with Eleanor. She married Louis VII of France while still a teenager. Overnight she became Queen of France. It looked like a perfect political union. Reality disagreed. Louis possessed a deeply religious personality. He had originally prepared for life inside the church before unexpectedly becoming heir to the throne after the death of his older brother. Quiet reflection suited him naturally. Eleanor preferred lively courts, poetry, diplomacy, music, hunting, and spirited debate. Neither person lacked intelligence. They simply imagined royal life differently. Imagine organizing a vacation with one friend dreaming about peaceful libraries while the other packs armor, musicians, and several hunting falcons. Compromise becomes adventurous. The royal couple eventually joined the Second Crusade. Thousands of knights, pilgrims, servants, priests, and nobles crossed mountains, rivers, and deserts toward the eastern Mediterranean. The journey proved exhausting. Supply shortages appeared regularly. Disease followed crowded camps. Political disagreements multiplied almost as quickly as the miles beneath tired horses. Stories later exaggerated Eleanor's role, sometimes accusing her of encouraging reckless decisions or behaving scandalously. Most modern historians reject many of those dramatic tales. Medieval chroniclers often blamed powerful women whenever complicated events demanded a convenient explanation. Apparently, history occasionally preferred gossip to accuracy. The marriage steadily weakened. Years passed without producing the male heir France desperately wanted. Personal differences deepened. Political tensions followed. Finally, in 1152, church authorities annulled the marriage, citing the couple's close blood relationship under medieval canon law. Official paperwork can sound remarkably polite while describing enormous life changes. Only 8 weeks later, Eleanor made another extraordinary decision. She married Henry Plantagenet. Soon afterward, Henry became King Henry II of England. Almost overnight, Eleanor transformed from Queen of France into Queen of England. More importantly, her lands remained hers. Henry now controlled an empire stretching from the Scottish border deep into France. Many historians call it the Angevin Empire. It rivaled the French king's own authority. One marriage had completely reshaped Western European politics. No battle required. No castle stormed. No army marched. Sometimes history changes because someone signs a marriage contract. Eleanor didn't command armies personally in the traditional sense. She rarely needed to She advised rulers, managed estates, negotiated disputes, raised future kings, supervised officials across enormous territories, while Henry traveled almost constantly. Running medieval government required endless letters, trusted messengers, local representatives, and careful financial management. Someone always had to keep everything functioning. That someone frequently became Eleanor. Being a medieval queen wasn't about sitting quietly beside the throne. It was about ensuring the throne still worked when the king rode somewhere else. Her children inherited remarkable ambition, perhaps a little too much. Henry the young king, Richard, Geoffrey, John, each eventually competed for influence inside their father's expanding empire. Family dinners probably required exceptional patience. Political disagreements within the royal household eventually erupted into open rebellion during the early 1170s. Several sons rebelled against Henry with Eleanor's support. The revolt failed. Henry captured Eleanor. For nearly 16 years, she lived under varying degrees of confinement, not inside a dark dungeon as popular legends often suggest. Rather, she remained under careful royal supervision, moving between castles while losing much of her political freedom. Even there, she never completely disappeared from history. After Henry died in 1189, Richard the Lionheart became king. His first important decision surprised almost nobody. He released his mother. Immediately, Richard trusted Eleanor completely. That trust proved invaluable because Richard soon departed on the Third Crusade. Once again, England required someone capable of governing while the king remained thousands of miles away. Eleanor accepted the responsibility. She supervised administration, raised taxes, negotiated alliances, settled disputes, arranged diplomatic marriages, traveled across dangerous roads despite advancing age. She performed enough work for several ministers without ever calling herself one. Power doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it signs documents before breakfast. When Richard later fell captive in Europe, Eleanor helped organize the enormous ransom needed to secure his freedom. The amount staggered the kingdom. Collecting it demanded remarkable organization and political skill. England succeeded. Richard returned. Much credit quietly belonged to his mother. Eleanor finally retired to the Abbey of Fontevraud in France during her later years. Even there, visitors sought her advice. Kings respected her opinions. Queens admired her experience. Ambassadors listened carefully whenever she spoke. She died around the age of 80. an extraordinary lifespan for the medieval world. By then she had served as Queen of France, Queen of England, mother of 2 kings, grandmother of future rulers, diplomat, administrator, estate manager, and political strategist. Official chronicles often celebrated the men wearing crowns, yet behind many of those crowns stood Eleanor, patiently guiding events with a steadier hand than history sometimes remembered. Real influence rarely needs constant applause. It only needs lasting results. Margaret of Anjou never expected to become the steady hand holding together a fractured kingdom. History usually remembers her standing beside King Henry VI. Reality often found her standing in front of him. When Margaret arrived in England as a young French princess during the year 1445, she entered a kingdom that still dreamed about victories won generations earlier during the 100 Years' War. Those dreams had begun fading. English armies steadily lost territory. In France, royal finances weakened. Old rivalries between powerful noble families refused to disappear. The kingdom looked peaceful from a distance. Up close, every crack had widened. Henry VI possessed qualities people admired in private life. He was deeply religious. Gentle. Generous. He preferred prayer to conflict and learning to warfare. Unfortunately, medieval kings rarely received promotions for avoiding confrontation. They usually needed exactly the opposite skills. As Henry's mental health declined during periods of profound illness, government nearly stopped functioning. Important decisions waited. Nobles gathered supporters. Old disagreements sharpened into dangerous ambitions. Someone needed to keep the kingdom moving. Margaret quietly stepped into that empty space. She chaired councils. Met ambassadors, rewarded loyal supporters, negotiated with powerful families, raised armies when diplomacy failed. She never officially claimed the title of ruling queen. She simply performed many of the responsibilities because almost nobody else could. Imagine arriving at work expecting your manager to return after lunch. Then discovering you'll be running the company for the next several years. Without changing your job title. That was roughly Margaret's situation. Not everyone welcomed her growing influence. Some nobles disliked taking instructions from a queen. Others distrusted her because she came from France during a war against France. A few simply believed someone else deserved greater influence. Politics rarely lacks volunteers. As rival factions hardened, England drifted toward what later generations would call the Wars of the Roses. The White Rose of York, the Red Rose of Lancaster. The symbols became famous. The reality remained painfully complicated. Families divided, alliances shifted, friends became opponents. Opponents occasionally became allies again. The political landscape changed so often that even experienced observers probably wished someone would distribute updated maps every Tuesday. Margaret refused to surrender easily. She traveled constantly despite enormous danger. She gathered supporters. Across northern England, she negotiated with Scottish allies. She encouraged soldiers. Before battles, she protected the claim of her young son, Edward of Westminster, believing that preserving his inheritance justified extraordinary sacrifices. Whether historians admire or criticize her decisions, few question her determination. She fought for her family's future with remarkable persistence. Eventually, fortune turned against her. Lancastrian armies suffered devastating defeats. Her son died after the Battle of Tewkesbury in 1471. Shortly afterward, King Henry VI also died while imprisoned in the Tower of London. Margaret herself entered captivity before French negotiations finally secured her release. She returned quietly to France, where she spent her remaining years far removed from the political storms that had consumed nearly her entire adult life. History often portrays her as fierce, sometimes ruthless, occasionally uncompromising. Those descriptions contain truth, they also miss something important. Margaret acted inside a political world that rarely forgave. Hesitation. Male rulers who defended their dynasties often received praise for strength. Women making similar choices frequently earned criticism for ambition. The standards rarely matched. That pattern appears again and again throughout medieval history. Many women exercised enormous influence without ever appearing first in official records. Abbesses governed wealthy religious communities that owned vast estates. Noblewomen managed castles, while husbands campaigned hundreds of miles away. Merchant widows continued successful businesses after their spouses died. Queens arranged diplomatic marriages linking kingdoms across Europe. Mothers educated future rulers long before tutors arrived. Sometimes the most important political conversation happened beside a nursery fireplace rather than inside a royal council chamber. Influence rarely announces where it lives. Imagine standing inside a great medieval castle. Visitors admire towering walls, massive gates, high battlements. Those impressive stones certainly matter, but remove the quiet arches supporting hidden ceilings. The entire structure eventually collapses. Power often works the same way. The visible figure receives attention. The hidden support carries the weight. Even monasteries reflected this quiet authority. Powerful abbesses supervised hundreds of nuns, controlled extensive farmland, managed finances, commissioned beautiful manuscripts, welcomed pilgrims, and corresponded with kings, bishops, and popes. Some exercised authority comparable to influential bishops. Their leadership rarely depended upon battlefield victories. It depended upon organization, education, and trust. Those qualities built institutions lasting centuries. The medieval world certainly limited women's opportunities in many ways. No honest history should pretend otherwise. Laws favored men. Inheritance often favored sons. Political offices usually remained closed. Yet within those restrictions, remarkable women continually discovered spaces where intelligence, persistence, diplomacy, and practical skill shaped events far beyond what official titles suggested. History sometimes whispers its greatest stories instead of shouting them. As evening settles across the castle courtyard, servants extinguish torches one by one. The last merchants close heavy shutters over market stalls. Monks finish their evening prayers. Somewhere beyond the walls, waves continue washing against distant harbors where Hanseatic merchants prepare tomorrow's voyages. A village physician carefully hangs another bundle of drying herbs from a wooden beam. Far away, an aging queen folds another letter carrying advice that may influence the future of kingdoms she will never visit again. The medieval world slowly grows quiet. Doctors searched for healing within perfect knowledge. Kings reached for absolute power only to discover crowns could become surprisingly fragile. Merchants built invisible networks stronger than many fortresses. Women guided kingdoms through patience, intelligence, and determination, while official histories often looked somewhere else. Each believed they understood the world they inhabited. Each saw only part of a much larger picture. And perhaps that's the gentlest lesson history leaves behind. Every generation believes it finally understands everything. Then time smiles politely. And keeps turning the page.